Welcome back to another VFX video tutorial with some super fancy schmancy stuff which you see on the screen. And this is a tiny little bit inspired by Final Fantasy 15. So if you get a new mission assigned, then this is kind of similar how they do it. Of course they have some other stuff, and because they have their own engine and we need to do with stuff which we can actually use in GameMaker Studio. Therefore I need to prepare some stuff, but everything will be explained in this video tutorial. So if you want this fancy schmancy stuff, of course patrons get the thing for free, but of course you can follow my instructions and can do this stuff on your own. So stay tuned. This is OneUp Indie. I am the developer of the indie game Clunky and a programmer / pixel artist. So if you are new here and you want definitely more, consider subscribing to my channel, because I try to upload every second day or every day a video and share my stuff. That would be sweet. So basically what you're seeing here is just a follow up, one thing by another and by another. And there are a few things which I'm gonna show you quite graphically. So for example, if you just want to know what is actually happening there, well, I'm gonna show you here. So the first thing what I do, I just take this stripe thing and make it like bigger. Then I have a background which is all the time there, and what I do after this thing is, it has its length, I just fade in slowly and to a specific degree, and then I have my background because I need it so, because it definitely looks better. So here of course I make it a little bit bigger and make it a little bit less transparent, but you get the gist. So basically stage 1, stage 2, and then after that thing has happened, I have a blurry image which is just like you going through, and once it hits the middle position, then this thing comes in, and then I fade in from 0. So basically this thing is bringing the text, so once it's hitting the middle position, that thing is just saying like okay, unlocked, and then we fade in, and that thing is going out of the screen. And then after this has an opacity of 1. Then the last part is, almost last part, I have because all the things are already drawn all the time, it's just getting popped in by alpha, and then we wait a little bit, and then everything is getting it's alpha reduced, and then it is gone. And then after we did this, instance destroy, bye bye. And this is how it works in theory. So basically for the first thing maybe which you want to have, this is the easiest part, all the pieces. So basically in Photoshop you just take a black box, make it centered, go through a filter which is the Gaussian blur, then you blur it a little bit or blur it a little bit more, bam bam bam. Then you have this nice thing which in the end looks like this. And this is your background. Then of course you need a few other things. First of all, you need your line, the line itself, and that one is basically just a white line. How can you do this? Well, just take the selection tool and then you don't select, let's go for something like this, fill it up with white and then scale it upwards. Then for example I make it a little bit thinner here and so on, and then once it is pretty good, then I just go under effects or right mouse button, filling options, or however it's called in English, and then you have some glow on the outside. I guess it's called just glow. Then I don't know, 5 pixels or however you want to have it, and then it is bluish because in Final Fantasy it is a white thing, a white line with a color overlay. Of course you could go there and do it just in the grayscale version, but then everything would be colored. So for example here I decided against it, because actually you can do it as a grayscale and just tint it whatever you liked. Here there's not the option, so okay. Then the next thing what we need some text. Quite easy as well. So first of all, you just write your text, which is looking ugly as hell, and then you go in, give it some margin, which is just 1, and make it not fully opacity. Then once again some outer glow but black, so you can actually see the text, which is kind of important. So let's say for example you wouldn't be doing these things, then the text is not looking too good, and this is the problem with GameMaker Studio. The fonts, if you draw them, they look kind of flat. You don't have really the options to make them, to pretty them up with some outer lines, some outer glow and all that stuff. And therefore I just do that in Photoshop, or you can do that of course in GIMP, and then you have some things which is making it prettier. So first of all we make some margin around it. Was it margin? Padding? I'm not sure now about the English word, I just completely forgot it. Then the next thing, we do a little gradient, so I'm just taking 2 colors and then put them in. Of course I just, this should be good, so this is good, and then of course you can make it as much as possible. So here definitely more on the bluish side, and here less white, and this is how you can do this. Bam, not gonna change it. So now as you can see it looks better, and then it definitely looks better. And for example if you have a background, now you see it better. Of course we have a blackish background, as you can see it is visible, for example without those effects. Even though maybe you would make it I don't know, white or whatever, it doesn't look the same. So for example here it is not stylized, and here it is stylized, looks definitely better. And now for example we need a second thing, which is the text which is below. So this one is, I guess, a smaller text. For example the header text is, let's say, just in some font which you need to own. If you use this stuff, just be careful, you need to own these fonts. If you make a video game, just a little reminder. And then for example here a smaller font, and of course make the size, here is 25 pixels and the header has, I don't know, what is it, 30? Yeah, so this one is bigger, so you just see, okay, this one is the thing which is repeating all the time, so it's saying hey mission blah blah blah, and then a subtext which you have some smaller and some smaller characters. Then you just distinguish, all right, this is important. Of course here I just have not the gradient overlay, just white, and then some margin around it and some outer glow to make it just more readable. This is quite important here because you are doing some soft overlays. And then one last thing, which is this speedy thing which is coming from left to the right. What I just did, this was kind of a cheap version. Of course you can do it with something more advanced, but here I just take that thing, scale it, do something like this so it appears it is in motion. Bam. And then I just go through the Gaussian filter as well, and then it will say, hey my friend, this is not possible, convert it to a smart element, and then something like this, and bam, and then this is how you can do it. And now you have all the things which you need. Of course, patrons, you will see, you will get the whole PSDs here. So let's go into the more interesting part, because now we're having all our parts in here. So basically the stripe, which is this bluish thing, align it in the center, because from the center point we will be doing quite a lot of things. Then the background, once again aligned middle center. So here this one needs to be quite a small image because we stretch it quite a lot. Then your first text, middle center once again. So basically everything is aligning correctly. So for example, once we started, because this is kind of important, it depends what kind of let's say what kind of dimensions you're having, this thing always works. And of course you see now everything is being drawn here, and then all it fades out, so it scales to your demands. Of course I'm not going into details how you can do calculations for all different resolutions, because this would be way too much for a video. Here I just assume you have one fixed resolution, and then everything around that will work pretty sweet. So here, this is just one object which is being spawned by my this object which I'm having here. I'm just pressing the left mouse button and I'm just creating it. For example, this is just a trigger for me, so you can see, and this is how you can just say, hey, you have a new quest, and then it will pop up that, and this is just basically it. So how is that thing set up? I did it in a thing which is called just stages, or you can call it state or whatever you like. And then let's say we are stage 1, we are doing this, stage 2, we're doing this, stage 3, up to 7. So you understand how the mechanics work in the background. Here there are some variables which I have, and they are animating the things which are in here. So first of all, what you need to understand is that I'm drawing everything all the time, but it's getting animated, so it appears that you have something which is going in there, but everything is from the get-go there. So here, and of course you could avoid this. Of course you could make some, say, if stage this, then you just draw that and this, but I thought, hey, let's make it as easy as possible. So the first thing which we need to get, and this is quite important, we need to get our camera and get our X and Y position. Why do we need this? Because let's say we are let's say in here. Let's make that smaller, and for example our camera, let's make some reddish point here, and then our camera X and Y, we need to get let's draw here, it doesn't really matter. Let's say, oh, this is quite small, let's make that a little bit bigger, let's make some fat points. So our X and Y position of the camera is basically this point, because it's the top left. Of course, if you're moving around with your camera, so for example you're scrolling to the right, then it will be something here or whatever. But this is the point. Let's say we are in our room, therefore we need to get our position here. Of course it doesn't really move, but here everything is being controlled by my player, so don't be confused by this guy. He's just controlling the camera. Let's say he's moving to the right, then of course the camera will move with him, and therefore we need the position of X and Y of the camera system. If you're not sure with camera systems, I have a video, link in the description to that. So first of all, we need to get the X and Y position of our camera to be, so therefore it will always align correctly. So because this is in our draw event, important. Of course, if you want to do that in the draw GUI, then you need to apply how big that is and so on. But here I just assume we have one fixed, let's say, width and height, which is 640 by 480. Bam. Then you stick to it in your game. And then the next thing we need to get the width and the height of our camera. And these 2 points are kind of important for me. So first of all, camera X and Y, then the width and the height of the camera. And with that, we need to be at the absolute center position concerning the XY, so we are in the half, but we want not to be in the half position concerning the Y. We need to go a little bit higher. Let's say we just want to, from the camera X position, and then let's say 30% how high that is. And therefore I have 2 values which I calculate all the time. Of course you don't have to do this, this is just so you see that the thing is dynamic. And therefore I have 2 variables which are basically well, the anchor points where to draw that thing, and therefore it will be all the time relative. So camera center X, which is the center position, so here from our camera X, the first position, plus how big the width is divided by 2, and we will always end up in the middle. The other thing is camera Y plus, and then the display height, but we don't want to be in the absolute middle, so we're not dividing it by half. We multiply it by 0.4, so we have kind of well, 40% downwards, and then it definitely looks good. This is how most of the games have, or let's say 0.3. And those two positions are being used, as you can see, in all our sprites which we are drawing. So the first thing which we want to draw is our background here. This is the easiest part. So here we have our background in those two positions. Bam. Of course we need to make it a little bit thicker, so this is the image X scale. So we just multiply it because it's a small image. We just stretchen it out, make it a little bit bigger than it actually is, and bam. And as you can see, then you will have those variables which are set up at the create event, and this one is starting with a value of 0. This is kind of important. So the first thing which we are basically drawing and doing in our first stage, and this is stage 1, so this is where we start off. Then what we are doing, basically we are just having a stripe image X and Y scale, which is just getting bigger. So we are drawing first of all only our blue line, which is this guy, and then bam, enlarging it. So basically the image X scale is getting bigger and the Y scale a little bit too, but just tiny little bit, as you can see, bam. And once we are hitting a specific point, then we clamp it down. So here I don't want it to be bigger than 1.2 because then it would go outside of the view and then it would be bigger than the whole screen, which doesn't look too good. And for that I have a little alarm. So let's say after 1 second and 20 we jump to stage 2. So basically this code is not being run, it's already clamped anyway, so this is just perfect. And then what is happening in our first stage? Well, we're just making the thing go up. So let's kill all the other stuff. For example, the first thing which we just do, so here I would be just drawing the line, it is enlarging, and then we are done. This is the first stage. Let's kill all the other, let's return all the other stuff. So what is happening in the next stage? The next stage is, well, after we enlarged our line, we want the blackish background to pop up because we want to have something which we want to draw on, so it's more visible. That thing is not mandatory, but I think it gives a nice contrast, and then you see, okay, this area is getting darker and therefore it just simply looks better. So here we just increased its alpha because it's starting at 0. So let's, for example, go in. So once again, stage 1, enlarge it. Stage 2, make it a little bit darker, and then of course this is quite nicely, and we are done here. So here, first 2 stages, not bad. Let's go to stage 3, which is now that we want, after we established, well, kind of our base, we want a blurred text to come in. So here we go, make it black, and then as you can see, this thing is going in, but then it stays, because here at this point we want to say, hey, it is bringing us something, which is the header text. So here we go. So what we established, first of all, we draw our stripe, we draw our, or make the, because everything is drawn already, we make the alpha of our blackish image thing here, and then we have an incoming blurry text which has a value which I call text move in X, and that thing is -500. So this is basically very to the left side, so that thing is somewhere sitting in here, and then it goes in, and this is just the idea behind it. So here in this stage we just say, hey, move it in quite fast, so +30, and then for example after this is 0, so this is a minus value, after we are in the absolute middle position, which we want it to be, we go to stage 4. Here once again it does move again, but it is already in the middle position, it just moves out. Then we fade in our first header text, which was the, well, the, I don't know, submission 4. So let's start it again. Line, background, something is going in, and bam, this is being faded in, and it already looks kind of neat. So what was happening here? Once again, we are drawing our line, then the background, then the blurry thing is coming from the left, and then, well, we just fade in the headline alpha of our main text. And this is just basically it. Everything is already in there, but here at stage 4, text headline alpha is just going up, and once we reach 1, we skip to the next stage, which is, well, then fading in very but this time a little bit slower, our text which is below us. So basically we already did the line, the background, the blurry text. Now we have the header text, and now the header text is saying, hey, I'm alpha 1. Let's give the mission details, which is just the text below, and then let's fade it in, but make it a little bit slower. So you see the hierarchy. This is the top text and this is the bottom text. And once, for example, this is has an alpha of 1, we say great, our header text and our bottom text have an alpha 1. We go to stage 6, which has nothing in here, and then this is just so we are not, let's say, going back or doing something crazy. We just set up an alarm for 2 seconds, so alarm 2, and that alarm is just saying, hey, let's go to stage number 7. And then once we are in here, because then it's saying we established everything, let's make alpha all and decrease it. So what is alpha all? This is just a value which I put in all the alphas here. So basically everything is getting faded out, and for example, once this value is quite huge, so minus 0.94, so it's even smaller than 0.95 in a minus value, of course, then we just destroy it, and then we have established all that stuff. Of course, this is just a lot of fiddling around, a lot of playing around, but the effect is undoubtedly kind of nice. For example, if you have seen Final Fantasy, then the blurry text, which is coming from the left to the right, is being faded in and then faded out, but I thought like, let's keep it like this. This is definitely good enough for starters. And then, well, this is very, very similar. Of course, they have some lens flare, some other stuff which I'm drawing here. I don't have that. Well, you cannot see it here, but this is basically it. So a very, very fancy way how to do text pop in or a mission briefing or whatever, because it just looks neat and it is quite easy to copy. So hopefully that was of use to you guys. Have a good one. Wanna Bindi.